Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
I say when we
You can
sell.
wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of Feb. Daily levels. Alright, so Monday we saw BTC just consolidate and move up pretty much in line with what I mentioned. We haven't sold off yet, which is good. But it's just moved up into previous area of balance where the market was struggling to break away either side. Seems to be continuing, 98k providing resistance right up at this level. And question is it going to push on from here? Certainly doesn't look like it. I'm not paying attention very, very low time frames as I'm away at the moment, and I'm mostly focusing just on the swings. So actually now that I'm coming back in and checking in on the market a little bit less frequently, I see things through a different light. But just looking at this from yesterday, there's very little that seems bullish about this or impulsive. It seems like attempt to go lower, failed Sunday night. So very typical Sunday, dump fails. We reverse back into range on the Monday. And now it's just sort of corrective sideways. Don't get me wrong, it could still chop around and go for that liquidity there. But it doesn't seem like BTC is yet ready for an actual sustained move higher, above 100. It's definitely, bottom can be in for sure. I'm not calling for it to go below 89, despite the fact that that's possible. And I think we covered it with Adam on the crossover stream. That's one possibility, is this, that it can go below that 89. But first place is, of course, just to retest the wick, which I think it will still do. And regardless of whether it's up or down, I think that at least the rest of February is consolidation. I know I would suspect that we close February somewhere in the 90 to 100k range, rather than above or significantly below. So it seems to be just kind of grinding its way through and trying to, let's see, this loads. What's going on here? Why is Deribit rugging me? We'll check the options. Data for BTC for the monthly. That's next week, 21st. Right where we are right now. There's a big strike at 55 on iBit. And above that is 60. So that'll be the February options expiry. 55 where we are now, and then 60, which is just sort of the high end of the range that we've been in. So more consolidation to come. And below that, sort of down towards the 50 level. For some reason, Deribit's not loading. Here we go. Let's see about the Deribit OPEX for the end of the month, which has 100k, 105, 110, 120. Yeah, I think there's pretty big overhead resistance here. It seems there was a lot of, look at that, end of March. Yeah, there's been a lot of bullish bets, a lot of big bullish bets made on BTC for this quarter. So obviously February and March. And I really don't think that we're going to think out from this. I think the market still just is digesting the move that we had and waiting for the next one. Today, what you've seen a little bit more of, or this morning, is actually Bitcoin dominance down. And you're seeing some of the alts that were getting wrecked having their chances to bounce. So you'll see a lot of green across the alts. And looking at them just as they come back into previous resistance retests would be where I'll be looking at it. I'll look at Ondo and Sui on trade of the day to swing trades that I'm in. But look at total 3 overall, and it's just rallying back up into resistance, previous resistance from before. And I still think that this move eventually makes its way down to the lows, unless you see it clearly reclaim here and consolidate and retest and hold there. That would be what would let me know that the bottom's in, would be a retest of this level once it rallies away from it. Otherwise, I think market can go back towards the wick, fill the wick in, and move from there. So you're seeing the first bounce really of alts since the big crash. And other than that, what's happening over there? Nothing. S&P just chopping sideways forever. It's kind of interesting. We're now in February post election. So the election itself was here, and the S&P initially went higher, came back to it, and is trading slightly higher than where it was on election day, 3 months later. But it seems a bit less pronounced than previous years. Here we had 2021, so November of 2020 here, and by the time we got to February, look where we were, all the way up here. So the election was there all the way up here. That was in 2020 election. 2016, Trump's first election. We saw a dip into the election, big rally after it, and by February, way higher. Even back to 2012. I think this one's probably the closest to what we've seen now. Where are we? November 2012. No, even by February, you're still clearly higher, right? Clear new highs. This isn't that. So election win, makes new all-time high, but is really just consolidating, and it's kind of interesting how much of this is priced in, or how much of it is just the case that the markets maybe requires just a lot more chop, or is it possibly, I wouldn't say bear market, obviously, but how much of this needs to be consolidation, how much of it needs to be digested of that move. Looks really bullish if it can break above this. Nasdaq, same kind of thing. Are they just basing before a breakout later on? Check back in on the dollar. Sideways, mostly, as it should be for a while before any eventual breakdown. Gold has been ripping to new highs. So this seems to happen every single time now. It's funny. Whenever gold starts pumping, people on Twitter tend to be like, why is Bitcoin not moving? Ignoring the fact that Bitcoin was absolutely smashing gold and stocks and everything when it went from 60k to 100k, 110k. And then gold breaks out. It's like, why is Bitcoin not follow gold? Because first of all, it's not supposed to follow gold. Right? Let's just get that idea out of your head. People don't buy gold and then think, let's also buy Bitcoin at the exact same time. The forces acting on gold are different to the forces acting on Bitcoin. They're on different cycles. They're different stages in their own cycle. Plus, when you see those moves on gold, it is exactly when Bitcoin was topping. Right? So gold broke out in March 2024. That's when Bitcoin had topped and was pulling back. Then gold broke out in August, September, October. So gold again had its next run before the election while Bitcoin was still ranging. And then when gold breaks out in January, Bitcoin's then also stopped its run ranging. It's almost like when gold consolidates, Bitcoin runs. That's been much more of the recent phenomenon, at least. We only have about a year's worth of data on that, of course, since gold broke out of its long 3-4 year range. But yeah, first wave up on gold, Bitcoin was pulling back. Second wave up on gold, Bitcoin was consolidating. Third wave up on gold, third push, let's call it, right? Rally, consolidate, rally, consolidate. Now it's rallying, Bitcoin's consolidating. So I think that's fairly normal. There's nothing out of the ordinary with that for me. As for today, back to Bitcoin. Actually, I want to look at Solana, because Sol had been setting up okay going into the Sunday night. Yeah, these don't look like I mean, it's a temporary bottom. Not to say it has to go lower, but it also doesn't seem to be set for any kind of big rally. I would say more consolidation to come. When you fully retrace any move, especially with an impulse move that tops out very fast and you decline slowly, and you're all the way back, you fully mean revert it. So anybody in bootcamp will know, when you fully retrace a move, you're not in a trend, especially since we're back below the daily bands yet again. And it's not so different to everything that was happening over here, right? The difference between Sol's strong trend, where you only get one real correction, but throughout all of this very nice trending conditions, you briefly lose the bands red, then straight back into trend. Then you move into more of mean reversion, where it goes this, retraces the entire thing, or more than 75%. Then this rally fully retraces. Then this pump fully retraces, actually goes lower. And then it has to build its way through, of course, until the election. And then it breaks out. But when it broke out, it retraced, at least in terms of the election move, which is over here, right, from these lows, retraced 75% of that, retraced that, full retrace of this. It's not trending conditions yet. You actually need to see price become less volatile instead of more, right? So here you've got actually more volatility in these moves where they're fully retracing, and you've actually got wider ranges. For Sol, best thing you could see would be some kind of just slow but reclaiming the bands, not dissimilar to this, starting to rise up and lower volatility. You could have a proper breakout. And maybe not like that, it's a bit extreme. But you could see Sol actually making its break higher. But I actually think for that, you want to see a month or more where it shows that it, first of all, won't go below 175 and that it just remains stubborn and holds and then starts to move up. I think it needs to show reaccumulation. Doesn't really look like anything here that's accumulation. In fact, much more like distribution, right? So we break the March highs. Looks like a breakout, but then fails. You then get the Trump meme coin and the massive pump, and that's a very clear failure. So from here, you really want to just see what I showed a minute ago. It needs to slow down and just be less volatile, but consolidate. Same for Ethereum. There's clearly nothing bullish about Ethereum. It's also probably had such a collapse that it's going to be difficult for it to go below 2,000 in the short term. That kind of, even if you just look at this deep sell-off in August, you had the ETF launch and then you had the big sell-off. That led to 2 months of sideways. September and October were broadly sideways. More August, September, October, nearly 3 months. Something similar you would expect at least here. Whether it's, if it starts to chop upwards again, much like Solana, then you can see it make a move for its 4K level, but that's clearly not a bullish chart. That clearly has a lot of work to do to reclaim any kind of bullish momentum. And so the whole market we're in this chop. That's really all it is. We're in this consolidation period. Bitcoin at any time can blast back into life. And I think for that, like I mentioned yesterday, and I think on Weekly Outlook, 98k is the level. So a clean reclaim of that, which is right up into the bands. But getting above 98, 98.5, getting towards the top end of the red band, you can see it move towards that liquidity at 100. And then from there, if a squeeze begins, there's plenty of air. There's a decent gap where you've got 102. There's going to be stops, and then there's real resistance. I would say sort of this 104, 105, and it could move swiftly through there if it can get above the bands. And if it doesn't, we're still in this same 90 to 100k range until further notice. And that's that. GM Tuesday update. GM.